Hey, we are live with another episode of what I'm calling Engaging Personalities, because here at Engagify we make teams and events more engaging. And I'm so thrilled to have as my special guest today a man who is a Hall of Fame speaker, past National Speakers Association president, author, customer service expert, and probably the biggest St. Louis Blues fan to ever have lived. He was even in the Stanley Cup parade.
Yes, I was. What an honor that was.
And I want to welcome Shep Hyken. So Shep.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And if Ferris Bueller could see how I got into that parade, he would be proud of me. That's a pop culture reference to a movie that most people should know about.
Yeah, it is. It's a classic, I think. So that's cool. I wanted to bring you in on this show because, we're talking about creating engagement, being engaging, all of that stuff, and customer experience is so closely linked to that. And we know each other from different things, from a bit of the magic world and what have you. Seen you at different trade shows and industry events, and I just wanted to kind of get your take on customer service and having people being engaging. There seems to be kind of a fit there. What is your take on that?
The answer is yes. No, I can give you more of that. And yeah, I've seen you at a number of trade shows, which is really cool. I'm usually speaking at the trade shows, and you're doing the work at the exhibit hall. And one of my highlights of every one of those conferences that I speak at is to walk the aisle and see you performing. So that's very, very cool. Anyway, to your point, more engaging customer service is, first of all, service is not a department. It's really more of a philosophy. It's how you interact with customers. Jan Carlson, back in the 1980s, when he was asked to take over an airline that was losing millions of dollars, that was Scandinavian Airlines, came up with this idea of managing the moment of truth. And his definition of the moment of truth was anytime in his case, it was a passenger, but let's just use a broad term of customer. Anytime a customer comes into contact with any aspect of the business, it's an impression. And that's it. It's that simple. That it's if the impressions go he said two ways, good and bad. I say there's a third way: average, satisfactory, mediocre. If you walk by a trade show exhibit and somebody just waves at you as you walk by, that's called mediocre. That's called apathetic. I didn't make the effort to come in. I noticed your badge was the right color, and I still didn't make the effort to come and engage with you. And obviously, once I engage with you, if I do it the right way, it creates a positive experience. And, I remember, I used to do trade shows as a magician years and years ago. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I did. And Terry Greenwood told me about that. And the thing I always remember about that is your stage was like, a case of drinks or something.
Yeah. Yeah. What I stood on, because I worked a lot with Anheuser-Busch, I learned that in order to get a little platform to stand on, I don't have to ship anything. I'll just go buy a case of beer, and then I'll cover it with a cloth. And after I'm done performing, I'll give away beers to my friends and make more friends. That's called engaging customer service. No, but seriously, imagine
warm beer. Like they would have to take it home and cool it, I guess.
You're right. Well, we cool it now. You're putting too much thought into this. But seriously, I would go get a case of beer or a case of soda. When I was working with Anheuser-Busch, they'd give me a case of beer. But soda, and I just put two cases of cans, or if they were bottles, I'd put a little top over it. Really, it works, and it was great. But I digress. So there were two things that we were working with on the trade show, peeps, and they would have me come in the day before and show everybody my show to entertain them. But more importantly, I talked about how to sell at that show and how to engage with customers. That was one of the add-ons that clients had beyond just having me perform. And so it was always fun to talk about how to capture people during the show as they're walking away, the perfect time to do it. It was really about engaging in the right way. One of my clients, we came up with a brilliant, brilliant plan. He recognized that he was going to be in that if he tried to engage with people at the show, all these people wanted to do is move on to the next booth. So what he did is he took out his camera, and as people were watching my show, he would take pictures of their badges. He wouldn't even go up and scan them. He would just take pictures, and then he would look at them. And then about 2 weeks later, nobody would approach anybody from the booth. It was my job just to bring and fill the booth with people so he can take pictures of badges. This may have been before scanners were really popular, but it's real simple. Yeah. 2 weeks later, he would call and say, hey, we're with, and the company was called PCS, Peaks Coffee Shop. And this was in the medical industry and hospitals. And they would find an open space in a medical center and say, let us have that space. We'll put a coffee shop there. We will just simply pay you a percentage of all dollars we bring in. You don't have to pay us anything, et cetera, et cetera. It was pretty cool. And so he would call him up and he'd go, you came by our booth, PCS. I don't have any idea what you're talking about. You remember the magician? Oh, yeah, that was great. And boom, he's in. Okay, now call it a sales technique. I call it an engagement technique. But the bottom line is you're creating an experience for them that they will remember later on so you can call back to it and then talk business.
Which is literally, a magic moment, which you talk about. I mean, it doesn't always have to be magic, but in this case, it specifically was. And we talk about that too when we've helped companies, with their messaging and making it more memorable in terms of whether it's on a trade show or whatever. The pieces of novelty like that become mental sticky notes in the mind. It spikes the dopamine, and then people remember it. So, great customer service can have that, right? So that it stands out, and you have that warm fuzzy that lives on. Right.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned moment of magic. So when you have these moments of truth, I mentioned they go 3 ways. Jan Carlson said they could be good and bad. The third way's in the middle: average, apathetic, mediocre. I call that a moment of mediocrity. If there's a bad moment of truth, any kind of a negative experience they have, it could be, I tried to find a salesperson, couldn't. The salesperson was too pushy. Those are probably moments of misery. And then, of course, if there's a complaint of any kind, and then a positive moment of truth is a moment of magic. And I emphasize that moments of magic, like we think of tricks as, wow, blow them away. No, a moment of magic is simply better than average, even the slightest little bit. And when you can create consistent and predictable above average experiences, then you are operating in the zone of amazement.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the amazing. Now, there was something you said earlier that I want to come back to, and it was this. We were talking about the trade shows, but I mean, it doesn't have to be trade shows. It could be anything. And this is more about like the willingness for people to engage. Like being engaging and having that interaction is one thing, but taking the risk to actually do that in the first place, right? To kind of put themselves out there. That's something. I mean, it sounds like a different thing to me a little bit, but if you
are you talking about the customer engaging with us or us engaging with the customer?
I would say us engaging with the customer, just because we should take that onus on ourselves in a sense of doing that. Now, is there any trends? Like, do you think with technology and with just people kind of being in their own bubbles now, social media, do you think there is a less of a willingness to engage?
Okay. Well, using the term being in the bubble, no pun intended in today's world.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But I think that you're going to see an interesting experience taking place when trade shows go back to being live trade shows. And that is, how close are people willing to connect with other people?
Right.
And so I believe that technology and the ability to wand or scan somebody's badge to talk to them later on is going to be more important than ever. But the ability to separate yourself from the crowd, because everybody's going to be doing that. There's a trade show conference that I usually speak at. I'm on their board of advisors. It's called CCW, Customer Contact Week. And it's all about the customer support industry. I guess my name as a registrant, because, and it was a virtual event, I got hit by virtually every exhibitor, and they had no idea who I was. They just had my name as an attendee on the list. Right. Oh my gosh. It so much disappoints me. And what really disappoints me, and I've called the CEOs of a few of these companies that I'm friendly with. They're not huge companies. They might have a couple, 300 employees. Maybe they have an artificial intelligence solution, and they're trying to sell it. Why are their salespeople wasting time on me? I'm the customer service expert that talks about it. I'm not the customer that's going to buy it, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll call them up and I go, so let me tell you what your people are doing right now. Without mentioning any names, they're taking the list and they're just going through the list. They're smiling and dialing and getting hung up on and not, getting any results. Gosh, if they could take the time, this is what I would do. And this is the new level of engagement. The phone is not dead, but the phone is the last resource you will use to connect with your customer. So what will happen is you will find out who this customer is. You will go on LinkedIn and you will find out information, their title, their company, what they do. You'll find some common point of interest so that you can come up with something that, oh, I noticed you went to, University of Missouri also. That's where I went. Hey, by the way, I'm reaching out to you because I know you attended the XYZ trade show. Looks like you came by our booth. And since I noticed that you were a Mizzou graduate, I thought I would reach out to you and talk to you about our solution. Now, you know who they are. You know where they went to school. You know they're the right title, so they're a buyer. You know their company's a good prospect. And you're on LinkedIn, and people are so much more willing to respond to you on LinkedIn than they are to answering a voicemail or an email even. And so therefore now you're in. And when you capture that relationship, and to give you an idea, we do 30. So let's go back to the old days when there was no internet, or as George Bush liked to call what Al Gore invented, the internets. See, now I got the Republicans and the Democrats nailed them both in one line. So you have no idea where I lean. Anyway, so in the days before the internet, the only way to connect with somebody was a postcard, a mailing, or perhaps the phone. There was no email even. And I remember 25 calls a day, every day. If I was in my office, if I wasn't in my office, I would do it from a payphone. I had I don't remember what it was, but I had a dial-in code. I made my calls, okay, every day. Out of that, about 15%. So out of every 100 people I called, 15 people would actually talk to me. Most of the people you're leaving messages for. Of the 15 people, about maybe 15, 16% showed interest in what I did. And of those people, 2 or 3 might become a client. So I'd have to get several hundred people to get 2 or 3 clients. It was a long process. Today, we go to LinkedIn. We do our research. We engage on LinkedIn. We don't sell. We offer value. I do that in the form of a special research report that at the beginning we were selling. Now we're just giving it away to clients who are interested or potential clients. So we're just trying to build a relationship. And after 3 or 4 interactions, we'll say, hey, you know what I do. Is there any chance that you'd want to talk about that? Otherwise, I'm totally cool just funneling great content to you. And believe it or not, it's working really, really well. So imagine if you combine the power of the person that stopped by your exhibit with learning about them on LinkedIn and then connecting. That's great. That's a great customer experience.
Social selling, right? It's social, layering in that piece right there. Now, you've been a speaker for years, and I just would love to know how things have kind of changed in terms of the speaking business for you. Because, I mean, you're an in-demand speaker, and, in fact, I'm going to pop up. Oops, here we go. Here's your,
thank you.
Your
That's me in front of a large audience. I haven't seen one of those in a while.
I know. Well, do you miss it? Just let me ask you that.
Oh, sure, I miss it. This is the strangest thing. The other day, last week, a weekend, just a few days ago, I went with my wife. We drove to Kentucky Lake, and we stayed in a little roadside motel. And I got into this bed, this strange bed. And she says, this is the most uncomfortable bed. I said, what are you talking about? I'm home. I'm in a different bed. I feel like I'm home. And we laughed about it. But I'm used to traveling. I do about 40 to 50 engagements a year, a lot of international work. So I'm on the road probably a good 100, 125 days minimum a year. Yeah. And that's a lot of hotel stays. And where most of your trade shows are 2 and 3 days long, my speeches are 45 minutes to an hour. So I'm in night before, out right after I'm done. Anyway, where am I today? I'm sitting at home and I'm doing virtual presentations every single week. As a matter of fact, I'll do more presentations this year than I will have maybe in the last 2 years, 3 years combined, because I've done as many as 3 in one day for 3 different clients. And it's very easy. I don't have to get on an airplane and fly to the next city. I just turn on the camera. Or often today, they are asking, because we give them this option, I will show up live. And when I show up live, this, by the way, StreamYard, which we're using, is an amazing technology. I have this little box over here called this Blackmagic ATEM. If we were doing a presentation, my slides could pop up full screen, partial screen, over my shoulder, down below on the lower third. I can control everything with this little box. So I can give a great live presentation. But I tell them, you really want the real value out of me? Let me craft a presentation the same as I would live. And by the way, it takes the same amount of time to do a live as a virtual, with the exception of virtual, I think is harder because the energy level and the concentration of not having an audience, having feedback, it's just more difficult. But here's the point. I will give them a pre-recorded, totally produced video of that's, if they want a 30-minute speech, it's their speech. Can't do it. I mean, I could do it elsewhere, I guess, but it starts off with their opening. I talk about their people, and my slides are not just slides, they're visuals, they're B-roll with video playing behind me, or, you know, an interesting background and different ways to create effects. You know, Steven Spielberg spends millions of dollars to create special effects for 2 minutes of a video or of a movie so I should be able to go on and use, you know, Adobe Premiere to, you know, to enhance my visual. So that's what we're doing. So I'll probably, you know, last year before the pandemic, I did 15 virtual presentations. I've probably done 10 or 15 every year for the last 10 years. Well, now I'm doing 10 or 15 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's actually been an opportunity to spread your message further and deeper with, you know, more people, just because of you don't have to go anywhere. You just can crank.
So here's what's really cool is clients call, and you probably get the same thing. You're probably going and doing virtual cocktail party magic shows and corporate events and lots of cool stuff you can do virtually. And my clients, many of them are saying, we're not going to use you for a speaker, but can we just interview you? Sure. What would you charge for that? And I go, you know, I don't know what the market is for me just doing an interview. Up until the pandemic, if you wanted to interview me for any publication, it's like, bring it on. You know, there's no charge. So I said, well, you know, I'm going to be an influencer. I'm going to help promote. What's that worth to you? So I'll even go in and just do a 45-minute fireside chat where they'll fire questions, just like we're doing here. You know?
Yeah, I think there's about, I mean, obviously streaming has increased, you know, and people are more used to seeing this kind of thing, but the casualness too, you know what I mean, is engaging in a sense that, like you said, a fireside chat, Shep, it has this kind of, authenticity to it, of course, and sometimes overproduced pieces, people kind of, you know,
this is real. This is my office. Okay. Check it out. Check it out. It's the boring office. On the other side of that door is my team. People say, oh, you must be at home. You have your guitars. No, at home, I have a dozen guitars. Here, I just keep a couple.
The office guitar, right?
I've got my deck of cards so that I can practice my card tricks when nobody's around. So,
I bet. Yeah.
It's like home, but it's not home.
Yeah, no, that's good. Hey, speaking of cards and you know, and magic, and of course that's kind of, you know, how we know each other probably originally. Is what did performing and your background in entertainment teach you that, you know, helped you, you know, of course, go on with speaking and the customer service? What kind of skills did you bring forward?
Sure. So 12 years old, I did my first birthday party magic show. My mom picked me up, took me to this house after school. I performed for a bunch of screaming kids. I was paid $16, which was a $1 tip on top of the 15.
I was 12 as well. I only got $5.
And you're younger than me, so you really, you know, you should have gotten much more. Yeah. So I come home. Mom says, write a thank you note. Great idea. That was my first lesson in customer service. My dad said a week later, call the parents, ask them, how did I do? You know, so I call them up, thank them again, obviously. Did you like the show? Yes. Great. And so so then he'd say, ask them what tricks they like the most. And then when you ask enough people, they'll tell you, you'll see common tricks. Then you'll find some they never talk about. Get rid of those tricks. get better tricks, so they will talk about them. That's called process improvement. So I'm getting show appreciation, feedback, process improvement. But my dad also, as long as we're talking a little bit about sales, he would say, ask them if any of the parents in the back, if you can get their names and numbers so you can call them about their parents or their kids' birthday parties. And I did that. And within like not even a year, I'm doing like 8 birthday parties a week, every week. And I'm raising my fees, and I'm getting more money than my teachers were making at school, which is really kind of bizarre for a 13, 14-year-old kid. But that was a really good start. The lessons: show appreciation, say thank you, get feedback, improve based on the feedback. Now, I graduate college. I'm looking for a job. My mom says, go see these motivational speakers. You need to get motivated. So Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins, they were my speakers that I went and saw. I thought, wow, I can do anything now. As a matter of fact, I bet I can do that. Entertainment background. By the way, I'd worked my way up into nightclubs and corporate events eventually while I was in college. So I put together a motivational speech that had a little bit of magic, and I was drawn to the customer service content simply because that's all I knew from what my parents taught me. And when I went to the bookstore, there were several books. As a matter of fact, check this book out. I was just sent this book. This book, it actually came out about in 8 or 9 years. It's called Service Magic by Ron Zemke and Chip Bell. Chip's a good buddy of mine. Ron, I met a couple of times, but man, I was a huge fan of. He wrote Service America, At Your Service, Knock Your Socks Off Service. So I bought every one of Ron's books. I bought book was called In Search of Excellence by Tom Peters. And those are the books that got me interested in talking more about service and experience.
That's awesome. We have a question from Martina, and I just want to put this up if we can. So she's saying, I guess, question, and not asking to be confrontational. Wasn't he a magician? We did cover that, yes. How do people pay someone to tell them about their business that has never been a CEO or a large business owner?
So very good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that make sense? Yeah.
That's a great question. Believe me, I was shocked as probably Martina may be when the first time I got booked to do a speech, I went, now I got to tell him something important. What am I going to do? So I think what separated me at the very beginning is because I had the magic background, I was a very entertaining, motivational speech on a topic that was of interest to them. And I didn't go deep in that topic. I hate to say it, but maybe my first 5-10 speeches were really book reports that I took information I'd learned from books and I created this speech around it. And they wanted that speech. They didn't want me as a thought leader. Well, over time, after working with literally hundreds and hundreds, probably 1,000 companies, not just honing my skill as a speaker, but learning from them and developing and researching, I've been brought in, and I mean, I'll make no bones about it. Have I ever run a large business? No. Did I run my own business? Yes. When I was in college, I actually went to work for an oil company, and I worked my way up into about number 3 in command. We did about, $100 million a year in sales. It was a retail organization, and I eventually, for 3 weeks, was director of retail operations and marketing. And then they sold the company, but they knew they were selling the company. That's why they put me in that position, because they just had to stick somebody there until the company was sold. But I digress. Was in college. That's really, I had a retail experience, worked in restaurants, did my own thing. But over time, when you devote yourself and read enough books, Zig Ziglar and a number of people said that the expert, when you read a book a week on your interested topic, at the end of a year, people say, wow, that person knows what he or she is talking about. At the end of a couple of years, that person's an expert. At the end of 3 to 5 years, thought leader. So I have immersed myself and researched and learned and studied.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the point I was just going to say too, is that, the fact you can be an expert of that one thing and so good at that. And if a company, doesn't matter how big they are, if they're not doing that, and that would help them.
Yep.
That's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
You're transferring that skill set, that philosophy, that ability to increase their potential.
And if there's everybody says, what's your superpower? I take the complicated and make it simple. But in this case, to me, customer service is not all that complicated. So I went for something that I loved and understood, and I still simplify it. I can tell stories. I can give examples. When you ask me if you want to get technical, we talk about digital channels and artificial intelligence. I study this stuff. I read 15 to 20 articles every single day. I read a book every couple of weeks. This is what I love to do. It's my passion. And I think that's what helps it. So, Martina, I don't believe you're confrontational in any way, because if a CEO was hiring me and they said, Shep, you don't have any real large company experience, why should I hire you? I said, well, I've learned from some of the greatest companies in the world, and I've taken those and I put them into my little brain and came out with this, idea for you. And you like it, try it. If you don't, and I mean, I've worked with huge companies, very, very lucky. Yep.
Right here, Merrill Lynch, AT&T, Disney, SAP, Lexus.
Yeah,
totally. The results speak for themselves in that sense. Shep, here's a question for you. Is there, the other thing we were talking about too is this idea that, you collect stories too, I suppose, and you hear about all kinds, like when you're a customer service expert, people probably just find you and tell you about unique
I love it when they do.
Right.
Some of it's really great. They actually, I think they vent and they look at me as a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's part of what it is. I also have trained myself to find the story, to find the lesson that is there. Yesterday or 2 days ago, what's today? Today's Tuesday. So, yesterday, Monday, I talked to somebody, and they're in our small real estate company. They have about 30 people working there, and they want one person to be like, I talked to the owner, and I talked to this person. She says, yeah, we want her to love on all of our clients. And I love the expression, love on your client, which I first heard it from my friend, John Rulin. And I said, so we started talking. I go, what's your title? Well, we're trying to come up with it. I go, why don't you call yourself the CLO, Chief Love Officer? And I'm the CAO, the Chief Amazement Officer. She could be the Chief Love Officer, right? And so she goes, that's a great idea. So I just wrote down CLO, and I stared at it for about 10 minutes. And then 20 minutes later, I had a 600-word article.
Wow.
It was in my head. So that's how I train myself to look for these things. And if I see an example, the other day, we had an issue with our cable TV internet provider at home. They inadvertently or just arbitrarily raised my price by 30+%, 40%, no warning whatsoever. So we called, they go, oh, your promotion ran out. I go, okay, thanks for warning me. So we started talking about it. And I said to the gentleman, I said, you are so nice to take care of me. By the way, I learned, just stay on the phone. For every 5 minutes you stay on the phone, they'll find a better deal. Okay. It's like, well, I could get your price lower to $30. I go, yeah, but you raised it like $70. What about, well, let me see. We are on the phone. Okay. I found another promotion. How is it you don't know these already? It's just, then I'll have to check with let me go type to the back office a message, So anyway, I digress. But what's interesting about that is I said to the gentleman, I said, you're a really great person. How many times do people get off the phone and don't get what they want? And when you get the feedback, what was your experience like? If you don't get what you want, the experience was bad. So on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being great, 1 being bad, you're going to give somebody a 1, maybe a 2 because the gentleman was nice or the lady was nice. But here's the problem. As nice as this person was, and this person was very nice, I said, I can't give your feedback a high rating. I'm worried that's going to impact your job. So would you rather me not leave the feedback? He thanked me. And then guess what happened after we got off the phone? 2 minutes later, his supervisor called me and said, this is what he said. I just want to verify. You're happy with him, but you're unhappy with the result. I go, no, I'm not unhappy with the result anymore. Finally took care of me. But it's a shame. I know we're getting way off on a tangent here. That's what happened. Squirrel.
I like that. But here, which reminds me, Shep, like now, if you are known as a customer service expert, and when you travel and stay in hotels, like,
It's like, Anders, when you watch a magic show, do you try to be fooled, or do you say, oh, shoot, I know how that one's done. I can't be fooled. I wish I could be fooled. That sense of wonderment has pretty much disappeared from your life. You know, when I saw David Copperfield first make somebody, when he floated in the air and he went all over the stage, I'm friends with his manager. And that was, I don't know how many years ago, 20 plus years ago. And so you would think most people saw that and they were blown away. And all I could say was, Guy Jarrett, let me go open the book. Yep, there it is. And so I called up my friend Chris Kenner. You probably know Chris. And I said, Chris, Guy Jarrett. He goes, how did you know? I go, and it bothered me. I really, really wish I could be amazed. But that's what happens. I go into a hotel, customer service radar is up. You know, go into a restaurant, do business, make a phone call, even, you know, for whatever reason. How did the receptionist handle the call? That's all I'm thinking about. There's nothing wrong with it, but I just can't get away from it. That's probably because I love it so much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to say, do you almost need to do the, what was the undercover boss thing, you know, where you wig a mustache and then you maybe, you know, see what really is happening. Yeah, that's a
so, and I know I've worked for a number of those companies, and I know those bosses that have gone undercover. I tried to put together a TV show, and actually I made it pretty far, and it was a reality show where we were going to go in and we were going to fix broken companies, broken because of customer service and experience. And so cool. Yeah, we're going to go into a small business, have a bad experience, go back. I come in, start to fix it. And then we go to, let's say it's a shoe store and we fix it. And then we go to like, what's the biggest shoe store in the world? Zappos.com. And we'll go to Tony Shea and we'll interview Tony for the last 5 minutes of the show, just getting his take on what it takes to create a great experience. And then we've got this nice little show. And I thought, what a great idea. And I auditioned. I was like right up there. It looked like I was going to be the guy. And then they decided not to do the show.
Wow. Yeah. Good idea, though. I like that. Yeah. I like those before and after kind of shows where you can see it working, you know, and people enjoying it and everything. Hey, you know what? I think we'll wrap this up. I just want to thank you so much, Shep, for coming on and sharing with us, you know, amazing customer service. Where can people can reach you? I guess I've already been showing your website, like what, Hyken.com? Is that about
Hyken.com. But, you know, all you got to do is Google me. Just Google Shep Hyken and you'll find me. If you Google Shep, you'll get a dog, but I'm usually 3 or 4 down after the dog. If you Google Hyken, you'll probably get me. A chair. There's a Hyken chair. I have no idea where that came from. And then my brother is a therapist. He shows up once in a while.
Good stuff. Hey, Shep, nice seeing you. I look forward to live events again when we can connect and do lunch in Vegas or something again.
I can't wait.
Yeah. But anyways, thanks so much.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.